What is up, everybody? Jason Tracy. If you've had a lifetime filled of interest in learning, but you have no idea how to take action and turn that into a profitable businesses, or a blog, then this is going to be the episode that you're going to want to tune into. What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit. I am so freaking excited for the guest that we have today. It is so cool because it doesn't happen often. I talk a lot of times about how I'm booked for several months out, and I just met Audrey this week, which is really awesome. Another shout out to Andrew Black, and I have to have Andrew on. I invited him on when we first met. We've never made it happen, but I've mentioned him a lot lately because he's introduced me to some really awesome people. And you hang around people like that, and they meet a lot of awesome people. So I appreciate you. But I'm so excited. First off, I first meet Audrey just this Monday at my boot camp, and I walk in, and she's like radiating this energy, and I'm like, let's go. I can see we're connecting on this energy. Like, I'm super excited. We had a meeting the next day already on the schedule, so I was super pumped for it. And just learning like the dynamo badass that Audrey is, in just how she has this affinity for learning, this passion for learning, the stuff that she's accomplishing in her life, and the difference in what she's moving on to now. But I've never had somebody on that's been a successful blogger and has made money blogging. And so we're going to talk about that, because one of the things we were talking about in our one-on-one conversation is people don't really know like what a blogger does, and she, and that kind of thing. And we were just out in the studio, and Rob's like, I've never met a blogger before. And so I'm super excited for that conversation. I'm just super excited for the energy and to introduce you all to Audrey. So, and as I was looking on her website or on her blog yesterday, Modern Frontierswoman.
Yes,
Boom.
correct.
It says rooted in grit. Right.
Yes.
And that I'm like, oh my God, this is her first podcast ever. It's my birthday that we're recording it. And like, what better time to be on a podcast, like better podcast to be on for your first one than one that's rooted in grit. Right. So heck yeah. And the freedom part, because that's what it's all about, like through entrepreneurship.
That is my whole shtick. I want to help other people find freedom in their life, financially, just in their lifestyle, in the decisions they make. Yeah, rooted in grit, growing in freedom. That's my tagline. It goes so well with Coffee and Grit podcast.
It does. So I'm excited to dive into your story. We talked a lot about it the other day, and I'm sure I'm going to learn more as we go into it. But we talk about blogging. Like, how do you just start something like that?
Well, like probably a lot of bloggers out there, it started as a hobby. I wanted a creative outlet. I wanted something that I could own, that I could grow into whatever I wanted it to be, something that could be versatile for me in the future. So it started out as I was obsessed with gardening, cooking. I was just learning a ton about it. Of course, my mom was a huge gardener, and I didn't pay attention to anything that she ever tried to teach me. So then I became an adult, a homeowner, and I wanted to learn how to make my own house look the way I wanted to and grow that hobby. So as I was researching, I thought, why not put all of my research and knowledge that I'm accumulating into something that could help other people that are trying to learn the same thing, put it all in one place. And I just started putting out articles. And it took me a couple years to get enough content and really start getting a readership built up, get my traffic going. Pinterest is a huge traffic driver for me. So at that point, I started growing and adding more to it, and I started making actual money off of it probably in year 3. So don't get into blogging if you want quick cash.
Quick cash, yeah, yeah. And so, like, what keeps you going? Going 3 years and not really making anything. What keeps you going?
Oh, good question. I actually am like this with everything I do. I feel like if you put the work in on the front end and you have a vision, it'll pay off at some point in the future. The same thing with my vacation rentals that I had, with my real estate business I'm working on now. I know all of that time invested, it will eventually pay off. And once it does, it doesn't just pay off once, it pays off over and over and over continuously.
It's that consistency, putting in the work and having the belief.
That's right. Yes. It definitely got to the point where I burnt out a few times. I was obsessed over my traffic and how are my numbers. And I had to be like, okay, just calm down. Let it naturally, organically grow. You can't force it. It just has to be a patience thing. Just keep, like you said, consistently putting out content. And then I grew and grew, and now I'm making a nice little side hustle off of it. I can't say I pay all my bills with it, but it's certainly something that now gives me a platform to reach a ton of people and get them to see the other ventures that I'm doing, connect it with my other businesses. So it's a great platform.
I love it. And, we had such an energizing talk the other day, but diving into and you're like, not everybody sees what you see, like where it all comes together, but like everything you've been doing, all of your experiences in life are coming together into this one platform where you really serve people.
Yes, it's the central hub of where you can find out everything about me. If you go there, my homepage has links to my other things, and I can direct people to find me in all of my 60 different platforms, and social accounts and all of those things, and multiple other websites that I have built, which I like building websites. So that's just been a nice way to connect everything.
What do you think it is like that, this being this lifetime learner? Like, what is one of your like earliest memories, like diving in and like being creative like this?
Oh gosh. Well, I've always been a little weird. I definitely have never fit into the norm. When I went to school, I was like, this is so boring. I already know all this stuff. I just want to challenge myself. So I told you the other day in 4th grade, I did a book report on Hillary Rodham Clinton on the side for fun, just because I thought she was cool and I wanted to learn about her. And I've always been that way. I research special topics down rabbit holes until midnight. I just can't help it. I get interested in a topic and I want to absorb everything there is to know about it. I can't say what in my personality triggers me to be that way, but I've always been that way.
It's like a superpower.
It is. I mean, and that's why blogging was just a natural fit for me, because I do this anyway. I'm just researching stuff. I'm reading things. I don't like to sit and watch TV as much as most people. I still do. But, I like to read about something that I've never heard about before. I'm full of fun facts.
I love this because, this podcast and like the audience, people listening, is like inspiring people. And there's so many people out there sitting like, they have all these interests, but have no idea how to apply them.
Yes. Yeah, you can start blogging. When I first started, I researched how to start a blog, Googled it, went on Pinterest, read other bloggers who blog about how to blog seriously, and learned how to use WordPress, how to do this, watched YouTube videos on how to do it. And I just figured it out as I went. So if I can do it, anyone can.
Well, that's what I love, is because the resources are out there. Like, we live in a time where we can learn how to do anything.
Yes. I don't know why we even have colleges and textbooks anymore, but you can really learn anything you want to learn. That's what I keep telling my kids. My son wants to be a computer programmer, game designer, make his own VR games. And I keep telling him, just do it. You're not too young. No one's stopping you. I can't teach it to you because I don't know it, but the internet can teach it to you.
Absolutely. Have you ever read the book, The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
The Outliers. I feel like I read that back in middle school. Is there a character named Soda Pop?
No. So this is not a fictional
that's The Outsiders.
Book. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good book though too.
No, Outliers, no.
Okay, so he just has this study of human success. And because people say like it's luck or, or whatever, all these, and he breaks down, Malcolm Gladwell is very like psychological in all of his works. And he breaks down like all the pieces that it takes to really like be that generational talent. Like, he breaks down the Beatles, he breaks down Bill Gates. And so like this reminded me of Bill Gates, and like Bill Gates, how he became successful wasn't because he went to college or he did these things, is because he went to this school that had one of the very first computers like ever, and so he got to spend a crazy amount of time working on this computer at the school. You'd stay after, like just working on it. So by the time he graduated high school, he was one of the top like world-renowned computer programmers before he graduated high school, because you're just doing. And I think a lot of times people will wait until they collect all this knowledge as opposed to just go doing. And I feel like you got to go do, learn.
That's the best advice. Just start it now if you want to start it. Like, what are you waiting for? What's stopping you? You know, don't let things get in your way, especially self-doubt.
Yeah. Especially the self-doubt. And that's probably the number one thing.
Not that I don't have any, I sure do.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't let it stop you from trying, you know, to do what you're passionate about.
What's the worst that's going to happen?
Exactly. You wasted your time.
But did you really, like starting the blog for you, for example?
Yeah,
because
it
you said
felt
you're
like
doing
a
it
waste
anyways.
of time for a
Did it?
long
Yeah.
time. I was like, when is this going to take off? Am I just doing this, you know, just to have a creative outlet, I guess? But then I started seeing things happen. I made some digital products I put on there, and I was like, wow, I'm actually seeing some revenue coming in off of this. You know, there's multiple different ways you can make money as a blogger. Amazon, you know, Google Ads, other ad companies, links, guest posts, digital products. There's all sorts of different streams that you can tie into it. And it took me years to get that all set up.
Yeah. Do you help other people do that kind of thing?
I have never helped another blogger, although I have thought about doing some articles now that I've figured things out. Because, you know, when I first started, I said I used to read other bloggers who help people and explain how to do it. So I've maybe reached that point where I could actually bestow that knowledge onto someone else.
I kind of skipped ahead with the blogging, but like, you know, kind of something that also kind of ties in talking about like interior design and your background in interior design.
I went to MSU for interior design. I started out doing kitchen and bathrooms. I worked at a kitchen shop down in Jackson, and I helped clients. I did designs, managed the construction, and all of that. But when my kids were born, I decided that was just a crazy hustle that I couldn't do with 3 babies in diapers. So I stayed home and started my blog and started investing in real estate, and definitely did a huge switch up with that.
Yeah. It's like, tell me about that. Tell me about the real estate.
So, well, I mean, I got into real estate at 21, really. I bought my first house as a foreclosure as a senior in college. I got the first time homebuyer's tax credit that Obama was offering at the time for $4,000, and it really helped me be able to turn that house into a really beautiful renovation. It took years and years. I mean, that got me started, but I, bought that and sold it and made about $50,000 in profit off of that by the time I was 25. So at that point, I was like, wow, real estate is a way you can actually make money. And even back to when I was renting an apartment, I knew that $500 a month I'm paying in rent is just getting thrown away.
Yeah.
So I just want to put it into a house where I get paid back at the end and I get all my money back. Like, why does anyone rent? So I was thinking that, in college, and thinking, how can I take this money instead of throwing it away and invest it into something that I'm going to get paid back on someday? And then I did a 20-acre parcel of vacant land, bought that, thought about building, had the twins, and then said, never mind, that's going to take too long. So I sold that, did a land contract, made $20,000 off of that, and was like, wow, okay, this is just great. Bought another place, and then started investing in multifamily. So I bought a duplex and did all of the property management on that, which was a great learning experience, and got another one a couple years later, managed those tenants, and it was a great income. And talked my parents into doing the same thing. They got a duplex, changed their whole retirement, and then eventually decided I want to get into short-term rentals. After doing long-term rentals for a while, I just saw a higher profit margin, a higher class of property, and a lot more protection with insurance and different things that short-term rentals offer. So I've been doing that for about 5 years.
Wow. Can we get into your parents' story? I love this story because I think it really ties into what you're doing now. And I was blown away because, we talk about being a real estate agent and someone's like, oh, great, another real estate agent. And maybe that's, but like, I think, you're really locked down into your vision of the person you want to help. And yeah, you can sell a home to anyone, right? You can help anyone. But like, when you told that story to me of your dad and your parents and what they did, and then like what you want to help other people do in like using your experience to do that, I was like, that's your difference right there.
Well, thank you. Yes, I want to help other people realize that they can build wealth with real estate and you don't have to be rich to get started doing it. So my parents had worked regular W-2 jobs their entire career and put money into their 401k like you're supposed to do, so they say. And they had watched me for years doing these duplexes and making money, and they were definitely interested. They saw it was successful. They saw the model working. So I went and previewed a property that I was considering buying for myself. And I was like, I just don't want to do this much work. It needs a lot of renovation. I don't have time for it. But Dad, you should buy it. Mom, come look at this property. So they came and looked at it and they were nervous. They were already retired. So they didn't have a lot of money to spend. They were on a budget. So I said, look, if we just look at these numbers, I'm telling you, you're going to make more money off of the money that's in your retirement, putting it in here, than you would just leaving it in there. So he was making, $80 a month off of that 401k. And so he took 20 grand or so out of his retirement and used it as a down payment on a duplex. It's 5 minutes from their house. And they renovated one unit while the other one was rented out and then swapped. And at the end of that, they were able to refinance and get all of their money back out of it. And now they're making about $1,000 a month off of that property, and they have $100,000 in equity that they've built. The market has risen since they bought it, and it has changed their whole retirement. My dad tells me all the time, thank you for making me do that, or talking me into it.
Like, how does that feel?
Oh, I love it because, if I can talk my dad into it, I can hopefully talk anybody into it because, a lot of people are scared. That's a risky move. What if it fails? And there is risk involved. I'm not saying there's not. I've definitely seen things happen, and I've done personal investments where the money didn't pan out exactly as well as I'd hoped. I haven't had any huge losses, luckily, but it certainly can happen. So I'm not saying there's no risk involved, but there's a much higher reward for the effort you put into investing in real estate.
I love how you said, if I can talk my dad into it, right? If I can talk my parents into it. And it makes me think, and we talked about in boot camp, I see sales as serving people at the highest level. So if we're like talking somebody into something, and, some people are like, instantly get like a cringe when you say like sales or talking someone into something or persuading them into something. But like you literally served him at the highest level by talking him into something. And I also love it because I've been in sales my whole career, either sales or business, and so many people think like, oh, I'll just hook my family members up. I'll just, like I won't sell them. I'll just give it to, my friends or my family. And I think we have to be able to sell our family in order to be able to sell anybody else. I put my family in my mind as I'm selling to people, a lot of times.
Yes. And I totally agree with you. And it's not necessarily a fact of talking people into it, but it's talking them out of their limiting beliefs. They don't think they can.
Powerful.
They think they don't have the ability. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the finances. There's something holding everyone back that they think they can't do it. And I want to show people you can. Let's figure out a strategy. There's 1,000 different ways that you could do it. The way people are investing in real estate, you can do it with a tiny amount of money. You can do it with a giant amount of money. It doesn't matter. You can get started at any level.
It's so cool. It's inspiring for somebody listening to this, like that's been thinking about this.
Yeah. I mean, I even have blog posts out there. If you get on and read my blog, Modern Frontierswoman, I have articles out there that talk about entry-level ways to get into real estate investing, crowdfunding, going on different websites where you can join a REIT or join different types of investment groups where you're just putting in a little money into the pot. There's a lot of innovative strategies out there. It's not just that you have to even buy a property. So people just don't realize that it's attainable.
What would it be like? So if they were thinking about this, like, and they reached out to you, what would that process look like?
Well, it's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts out talking about their goals. I mean, the lifestyle that they want to lead and how real estate can help them achieve that lifestyle. And that's going to be different for everybody. Some investors just want cash flow. Some people want to build equity. Some people want to leave a legacy to their grandkids. It just depends on what they're looking for. So coaching someone it comes down to their individual needs each time. It's going to be a different conversation.
That's the right answer. No, I love when I ask people and I have no idea their process, and I'm like, boom, that's it right there, because it's like everybody's different.
Yes, you can't serve anyone the same way. I mean, people, even in just the way you communicate with them, everyone's different with their needs, what they want. Some people want you to sit down at a table with them and talk to them, and some people never want to see you. They just want to email you. They just want to, maybe have a Zoom call. My last closing I didn't see my real estate agent once because we already knew each other. And, it was before I got my real estate license, and she helped me sell my investment property. I never saw her one time. She went to the property, handled things. I didn't have to go there. It was rented out as a vacation rental. And we closed remotely. I had a notary come to my house. I went to FedEx for another closing and did a notary there. So that's my style. I don't need anybody to help me. I'm good. Let's just sign the paperwork and do it. But some people want that other personal touch. They want to see it on a piece of paper and not electronically sign it. Everyone's different with the way they want to communicate and the way they want it to go.
It's so important to discover who that person is. And a lot of times I see people like this one size fits all solution, and everybody is different. And it's about making the transaction, the communication, the relationship easy.
It is. I agree. And learning other people's communication style is a big part of it, which I think is why my natural intuition comes into play a lot with that. I rely on that, and I think everyone should, investors included. You can look at everything, all the numbers, you can look at, everything on paper, but if your gut is telling you something, that's what you really need to listen to. And it's the same with people. You can sense the way they react to you, what they like about you. You can find common ground with them. It's all about intuition.
A lot of times, and I love that. Again, I love this conversation because it's like a lot of people think that's like woo woo, or like they, like the whole intuition thing and stuff like that. I had this client not that long ago that came to me, and she's like, "I'm horrible at sales because like I can feel people and like I can feel their emotions." I'm like, "That's a superpower. Like use that, right? Like you're like, how do we use that?
You know what they need then.
You know what they need.
Put yourself in their shoes. Yeah, I've definitely taken a long time in my life to come to that conclusion. When I was younger, I knew I had that. I knew I had that intuition, but I listened to people that were older and wiser, or I went and trusted logic. Multiple times I saw myself make decisions, and then, at some point later on, something would happen and I would say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have made that decision. I shouldn't have gone with that job. I shouldn't have gone with that. I should have made that gut decision. I knew it.
Yep.
And I ignored it. And so after a few times of that, I was like, I'm going to stop listening to other people. My mom will tell you, she's like, you never listen to any advice I ever give you. And I'm like, I do listen. I take it all in. I absorb it. I listen to it, and I put it into my algorithm in my brain. But at the end of the day, I'm going to trust my gut, and I'm going to do what I think is best for my situation. I'm not going to let anyone else influence that.
5,000%. Have you read the book The Alchemist?
No.
phenomenal book, but it's like about chasing your personal legend, like going and fulfilling your purpose, and how so few people actually go do that. Like they respond to like there's more, that dream, that constant vision. And as you're pursuing that, as you're going and actually pursue your personal legend, the universe conspires to give you what you're looking for. That's the whole premise of the book. Now, not saying it's linear and you're just like getting success. It's the journey like we have, where it's like it takes a look forever, and you have wins and losses, and people come into your life to try to steal your dream or divert you and all this different kind of stuff. But one of the very first tips the main character gets as he's pursuing his legend is listen to the omens. Listen to the omens. And throughout the book, it's that intuition, like that feeling of like, this is not the right thing.
Yeah. Trust yourself. No one knows you better than you do. Don't necessarily listen to other people that are influencing you. I mean, listen.
Yeah. Yep.
Do what feels right. Yes.
Do what feels right. Absolutely. So I told this story yesterday at an event I spoke at, and I was in a franchise. I was a sales director for a franchise, and we had bought these 2 locations, Frankenmuth and Ortonville. And there was an owner of the owner guy, the guy that owned it. I'd known him. He's part of our franchise, so I knew him well, and I knew how he ran his business. I knew his personality, and so I was like stalking these stores, waiting for them to like hit a certain point to where we could then buy them at a super cheap price. And it ended up happening after a few years, because Frankenmuth, it's like Frankenmuth, right? Like, I'm like, iconic. I want a retail location in Frankenmuth. And so we end up buying these stores, and this guy is taking me to his locations because we bought everything in it, including the people. And he's telling me about his people. And we're on the way to Frankenmuth, and he's telling me about his team, but he's specifically focused on these 2 people. And he told me about this guy. He's like, I can't even remember his name, which is just so funny. And I'm going to tell you where the story is going. He's like, this guy, he's like so amazing. He's like, he's going to be your next manager. He'll do whatever I ask him to do, blah, 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 blah. And I just found out he was kissing people's asses, like nice kid, but like, he's not going anywhere. He's like, Hannah, like Hannah, you'll probably end up firing her. He's like, she'll give you attitude. She won't do anything unless you pay her for it. He's like, I asked her to take a deposit to the bank, and she asked me how much I'll pay for it. Blah, 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 blah. Just complaining about this chick, right? I'm like, just kind of like, whatever, shit, listening to him, but I'm like, knowing my intuition, like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to talk to these people, and I'm not going to listen to anything he says or make any kind of form of judgment, because I know people perform for the people that lead them. Like, you don't quit your job, you quit your boss, you quit your leader.
Oh, I have 100% quit a job for a boss. Yes. I mean, I used to be a barista, working at a coffee shop, and I worked at one for 3 years. And then I transferred up to be closer to school, worked at a different place with a different boss. I lasted 3 months. I was like, I can't work for this person. She makes me feel horrible all the time.
Yes.
And I left that job with no other job in sight. And I mean, great things happened after that. But yeah, it really matters. Leadership is so important.
Leadership is so important. So I come in, and it's like building trust, because I had a bunch of people that did not trust, and especially these 2 key females. One just texted me on the way here to say happy birthday, which I love. Kelly, shout out to you. These 2 females that were like, we're out, we're going to quit. Hannah being one of them. And I'm sitting and I'm talking to Hannah, and I'm just wanting to get, before she was giving me her feelings of how she felt about where the company was, I was just picking her brain, like who are you? Like, getting her story, like, what lights her up, all this kind of stuff. Just asking her, doing this, right? This has always been my superpower. Like, let's just sit down and talk. And like job sale, was doing interviews and interviewing salespeople all the time. And it's like, people would just tell me things that they wouldn't tell any other job interviewer ever, right? And then they'd tell me that was the best interview that I've ever been on.
That's your superpower. You can
superpower.
get people to tell you anything.
It's just talking, right? All of a sudden we're talking, and boom. So we're talking, and she starts telling me about how that year she had made $40,000, and she was so super pumped about it. She'd come from a poor family. Her mom, the most money she'd ever made in her life was like $20,000. So she doubled the amount of money that her mom had ever made in her life in a single year. And she was like, but that isn't enough. There's more. And she was like, there's more out there. I'm more talented than that. And she's like, just telling me this stuff and the life that she's been through. And what I saw wasn't what this guy saw. I saw somebody that I could drop in the jungle, and she'd come out riding a fucking lion, right? Like, she's coming out and she's riding the lion, and she's like been eating, and like,
that's who you
good.
Want, right?
I'm like, you're my
Katy
girl.
Perry.
You're my girl, right? Like, boom. Like, I know what motivates you. Like, we're on the same page. And like, she became one of my top salespeople, like top 2 in my whole entire company. She became a manager. She ended up being a manager of that location. Then she became the first 2 location leader that I had in the whole entire company. And then when she was ready to quit after I left, and it had been like a year or so after I left the company and started my own business, I had hired her for one of my clients. And, it's just, she's amazing. And it's like, you listen to your intuition, not what other people tell you about somebody.
Yes, I totally agree, because people in different situations, like in that situation, she was just frustrated with where she was and she needed someone to open the door for her, and you never know. You got to meet people where they are and see what's going on.
5,000%. Because it's, I found people that they just they need some hope. They need some motivation. They need somebody to just pick them up and believe in them. I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed someone to come along and do that in order for me to like get out of my head.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably why you started your boot camp, which I'm excited. I actually just signed up for the next month of sessions to come back and see you again. So I loved going to it, and you're very inspiring. I can see why you are successful. You get people to see things in themselves that they maybe don't see.
It's about finding your purpose, and that is what lights me up. It's finding that stuff. I had this guy, Josh, that I worked with, that he, this is kind of like realizing what my purpose is. He when I hired him, he was this 20-year-old guy. He found out he's having a baby. He was on again, off again, a girlfriend. He was working at this kiosk in a mall when I hired him. So like, if you've ever been to a kiosk in a mall,
sure,
they come with the 6-shooter pistols, and because they always have a deal for you kind of deal, like just like slimiest of salespeople. And like, he'd been taught that. So
you have to grab everyone that walks by. Hey,
hey,
don't you want to buy this?
Hey pal, hey friend, like everybody's getting the hookup. And I had to like train that out of him. But what I really liked about him is he took my shit. I could say whatever I wanted to him, and he like didn't get all like, hurt by it. And like, he just like knew what I was meaning. And he'd always like tell me what was on his mind. But he sucked for so long. Like, he just like, I'd watch him struggle, and like I helped, like he'd get better, but then like he just was not, even though he should have been motivated, even though he knew he needed to be motivated, he was like sitting and goofing off. He wouldn't make calls. Like, it got to a point I was interviewing 2 guys to be the leader of that location, and in their game plan that they each went over individually with me. They both had, we're going to fire Josh because he's a waste of space. He's like, driving everybody crazy. He's distracting us, blah, 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 blah. So a few days later, I have a company meeting, and I'm standing up and giving this speech, whatever, and we get done, and Josh comes up to me, and he's so excited. He's got this tattoo on his arm, and it says, don't tell your kids how to live a life of greatness, but instead show them the way. And
I love that.
Dude, that's awesome. Great tattoo. And I'm like looking at him, I'm like, so what'd you do?
What are you doing to show them?
What are you doing? And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's awesome, man. But don't be like no regrets on your neck. Like, you got this great billboard on here, but I was here all day.
Live it.
What'd you do? And he's this big burly guy, like started bawling and crying, and because he realized like he didn't do anything. He hadn't done anything. And it's like, that's so great, man. You got this tattoo. You got an everyday reminder now. It's like Diva La Tat. Let's like, if I see you goofing out, like, if you don't do the stuff, you got to go look at your kid in the eyes at the end of the day and say, I did nothing again today. And how bad does that hurt?
Yeah. But we need people in our lives that are willing to be honest with us like that. Because so many people will sugarcoat everything for you, don't want to hurt your feelings. And I mean, for me personally, I like it when people give me some sort of constructive criticism or feedback on ways that I can get better, because I want to get better. If you're seeing something in me that I could improve on, I'd like to know.
Yeah. Flat out at boot camp the other day, I'm like, if this guy doesn't get better, he's not going to make it, and so I'm going to, like, he's got to get loose.
Tough love.
So fast forward 3 years later, Josh put in the work, and he became my top guy. Just by far, he actually in our franchise became the top sales guy in the whole entire country. And
wow.
I know, right? So 3 years later, this guy calls me up, and it's a Saturday. Usually he calls me up like, cocky about all of the deals he's got lined up and stuff like that. So he calls me up, and he's like, kind of like just, different tone in his voice. And he's like, hey, Jay, he was like, I bought my first house for my family yesterday. And I was like, yeah, man, I saw that. He's like, congratulations. That's so exciting. He's like, I was sitting here and I'm thinking about like, how did I get here? and how did I get to this spot where I can get this house for my family? It's nicer than the house that I grew up as a kid. And, how did I get here? And he was like, if it wasn't for you believing in me, kicking my ass, like seeing things that other people didn't see, I wouldn't be here. And he was like, I just wanted to give you a call and say thanks. And I'm like, I still get emotional telling that story because it's like, you
changed his life.
I changed his life, but that little moment changed my life because like it was an instant, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I was put here to do. Like I was, I hung up that phone, I sat on my couch and cried for like 45 minutes because it was like that, I made a lot of decisions in order to get into that spot, in order to touch that guy, in order to change his life.
You were personally invested in his success too. So you were happy when he was happy and it affected you emotionally. I mean, I love that.
It also like, in its learning about yourself, the people that like the Joshes it's like, I can spot the people that I love working with, I'm like, I am so excited. You're part of boot camp. Like we're going to kill it.
Yeah. I'm excited. Everything that you guys have to say in there, just my one session, it was so real, Not every business thing you go to has that. They give you the cookie cutter answers. They give you, this is the textbook way of doing business. But you guys are outside of the box looking at everyone as an individual. And that's so much more valuable to me than, reading a book about how to be a great real estate agent or something. I could do that all day. It doesn't apply to me necessarily. I'm not your average case. And I don't think anyone really is. I mean, those books are great to give you ideas, but when it comes down to actually coaching someone, you need someone that's not afraid to tell you what to do and really push you, in your situation that's specific to only you. No book can help you with.
No book can help you. And when I started my business, that was the feedback I was getting from clients. A lot of my clients had spent a lot of money on sales trainings. But the things, not any of those sales trainings are bad programs. They teach you, the frameworks or the things to do, the processes, the scripts, whatever. But the thing that they don't teach you is the belief system. And so I had this client that was, when he was talking about, he was like, man, he was like, I went through this training and I won't mention him, but he's like, there's a popular sales training that's around. He's like, I went through this training. He's like, I spent like $5,000 on this training. And he was like, at the end, he was like, I was about to go have a sales meeting and I'm sitting in my car and I'm like reading through the notes and I go and we're having this conversation and the guy gives me the exact objection that I was reading in my notes in the car. And so I was like, boom, I'm prepared. And I responded exactly as my notes said, and the guy looked at me across the table and said, oh, you took you took Sandler training too? And the guy's like, it was like he looked in my underwear drawer and he was like, I just like left. And he was like, but with you, he was like, man, I just feel like I'm me and it's like fun and I can go out and like have conversations with people. It's not a matter of like making my interaction a transaction.
Yes. And it's great advice. Like I said, I went there with you guys and talked about how to have conversations. And then I went to another class and they were like, read your script and then do your cold calls. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a totally different perspective. I'm going to take them both in. But the way you guys present it, it's more real life. It's how you actually interact with people.
And it's tuning into like what you talked about and going back to you is like the intuition.
Yeah, I can tell you have a skill for reading people. And I think everyone really does. We just are so absorbed in our own thoughts that we don't tune in to what other people are saying. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Other people talk and I'm thinking about all of the things on my to-do list. And I'm thinking about that other project I have to work on. And then I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm not even paying attention to them anymore. So,
Yep. Yep. Yeah, especially like if your mind is running and you've got so many things going on, and it's hard.
It takes some coaching to get people to realize. So, and I know that's what you guys do. Like that was one of the things you said at boot camp is just, actually listen to the people instead of thinking about what you're going to say next.
It's so simple, but not easy. Going back tell me a little bit about like EXP and how you joined it and like what your opportunities are. I know it's not just like locally even.
So I was an investor, interior designer, blogger, and finally got my real estate license. It was something I've been kicking myself for not doing for years. So I just went off on my own. I took the exam. I knew I wanted to do it. And I thought, I'll find a brokerage once I pass. We'll see how long that takes. It can take months. So at that point, I interviewed 15 different brokerages. It was exhausting. I spent a month trying to decide where's the best place for me. So finally, I met with someone. Her name's Haley Hindle. She runs the Legacy Group International team with eXp Realty, who is my brokerage. So eXp is a huge brokerage, thousands and thousands of agents internationally. So within that, my team is about 200 agents. So it really feels like a place where you can get to know people. And I have agents in states all around the country who I chat with every morning. I just was talking to them on my drive here. And it's a huge network of people that are actually there to support you and collaborate with you and help you grow your business. We talk about, everybody's real estate issues, how to solve them, mastermind together. They have trainings. They have all sorts of resources for us to use. And it's connecting me with agents in almost every state. So that's a great thing to offer my clients. How many people are moving out of state,
Yeah. Right now, probably a lot. It's like, 55 degrees on May 23rd.
Yes,
so no sun.
Everybody's going down to Florida, right? Or at least looking for your vacation places in those states, which, with my vacation rental background, I would like to be able to partner with agents in other states to find my clients short-term rentals that, I can't do a transaction in another state without an agent there working with me. So I have those people all set up and really great, open-minded, helpful agents that are genuinely there for you. If you have a question, they're just like, yeah, I'm here to help. And maybe you'll help me someday, whatever. They're just really supportive.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I had got a chance to work with a real estate agent, like I said, several years ago now, that was showing me the EXP system. And I'm like, this is really cool. So you were saying that, I'm like,
yes,
it's probably come so far.
It's totally
since
virtual. EXP is a virtual brokerage. They don't have any office locations, which throws a lot of people off when you're talking about real estate. They're like, where's your office?
Yeah.
Where's your office? And I'm like, well, I have a great office in my house that I can go to. I put my kids on the bus and I'm at my office instantly. So it works really great. And in real estate, we meet clients at properties. I mean, I've done so many real estate transactions. I've never gone to my real estate agent's office to meet with them. I mean, some people do, certainly, but
yeah,
it's not something that's a necessity. So with EXP, they save all of that overhead, not having offices to pay, and then they pay their agents more. So it works out.
It's huge. I thought it was like a really clever system. And I love what we were talking about the other day of like, it's fitting for the way you operate.
Yes. As a real estate agent, I mean, how often do you sit in your office? You do some stuff at the computer, you make some phone calls, but for the most part, you're driving around, you're doing 1,000 different things. So going to an office isn't very convenient. And especially after quarantine, everyone's started working with platforms that made it really easy to virtually connect with people. So EXP has, I like to compare it to Roblox. It's basically a hub where everyone that works at the brokerage can go in. You have your avatar. You're playing a computer game. You walk in. You can get help. You can go to your broker's office by state at the map, and you pop in there, and within 30 seconds, you're talking to your broker. You're talking to a compliance expert. You're talking to whoever you need to get your problem solved. And they have classes, and you can go in to, we've got state meetings, auditoriums. It feels like you're sitting in an auditorium with a bunch of other people's avatars watching a PowerPoint presentation, with a speaker. It's just as if I went somewhere, but I'm still in my house, or I'm on the road and I can do it from anywhere as long as I have internet. So that's the way real estate agents need to be able to work today. If I have to go back to the office to do my paperwork, that's really, it's wasting a lot of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially, you get into real estate for the freedom, right?
Yes.
And I've had a real estate agent on before. It's like, well, you get into it for freedom, and it's like, great, you get to work the most 60 hours, whatever 60 hours of the week you
never
want.
clock out. I mean, never. I'm like, I get a message at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like, oh, I should really respond to that before morning because, time kills deals. That's what happens. You wait, and then they've moved on to the next person. So real estate agents have to always be on all the time. You mean we still get our time, but at any second, the drop of a hat, you're working again. Yeah. You're in the middle of something comes up, now you're working.
Yep. I want to, kind of share with the audience, like when I talk about like being the lifelong learner, you told me the other day about like learning Spanish,
yes.
5 years ago. And
Yep.
then before we went on, you started talking Spanish, and it's like, it's crazy because you hear, all the time, that if you don't learn fluently a second language by the time you're like 7 or something like that, you can never speak it like so fluently.
So that is so incorrect. Anyone can learn a second language. I took 2 years of Spanish in high school, as my requirements.
Yeah.
And I learned what I needed to learn for my exams, and I passed.
And you passed.
And I got an A, and then I went to college. I didn't keep with it. I didn't study it again. It slowly drifted out of my mind. And by the time, I was in my 30s, I was like, I don't remember anything. Puedo ir al baño. That was all I could remember. Can I go to the bathroom? From Spanish class in high school, So I thought, it's quarantine. The world's shut down. I'm working on this other vacation rental. I've got just time, and that is a skill that I've always wanted. So I use Duolingo, and I just started doing the lessons on there. And they do it really well because they make it like a video game. If you have a streak, you get extra points. So
feeding the dopamine.
I went for 3 straight years, just about barely missing a single day. And some days it would only be 5 minutes, but I would make sure I didn't skip it. You can always find 5 minutes, replace scrolling, for 5 minutes. And I started reading. I started watching shows on Netflix. You can dub anything, everything's dubbed in all of the languages. You can choose whatever you want. So you can watch your favorite shows dubbed just to, get that language input into your brain. So yeah, by 3 years, I would say conversationally fluent. I wasn't very confident though. So at that point I met someone who changed my life. Nino Rodriguez. He's a professor at MSU. He's on the Lansing School Board, and we met randomly at a Panera. He saw me reading a novel in Spanish and came over and started speaking Spanish to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Like, what am I going to say back? Think of something to say. And from there, it kicked off, and he hired me to be his translator and editor for his biographical novel. And we worked on that for the next year and a half, and he taught me so much. I mean, he improved my Spanish a lot. I can't believe he gave me that opportunity, honestly. And so now we're still friends. I just went to lunch with him last week. His daughter's one of my first real estate clients. And it's funny how it all just ties back in. But yeah, as far as learning Spanish, anyone can do it. Just start. All the resources are out there. Just, make sure that you're keeping up on it. Consistency, like we said earlier, is key. Eventually, I started changing my inner monologue in my mind. So I would talk to myself in Spanish all the time just to practice, because I don't have anyone to practice with every day. I listen to music, I watch movies, and I just talk to myself. You talk to yourself all the time, your inner monologue, just translate it.
Yeah. And if you're like, no, I don't, like, yeah, you did. You just talked to yourself.
Yeah. Everyone does it.
That is so okay. You got to speak Spanish, so like in the mic.
Okay, so, hola, soy Audrey. Soy agente de bienes raíces. I'm a real estate agent. Soy diseñadora de interiores. I'm an interior designer. Y soy dueña del alquileres vacacionales. I'm an owner of vacation rentals.
That's awesome. I love this. It's like opportunities are all around us and we never know. And that's kind of one of the key concepts I always talk about. And, when you just take action, when you go do, like, you don't know, like, you're just doing something for funsies, right? You're doing something to like advance your learning. You've always wanted to do this. You spend 3 years on it. And this is even going back to like the blog of like having the patience and,
Yes, you have to be very patient when learning a language. You can only learn 15, 20 words in a day. And there's 10,000 words to
and
learn.
there's 10,000 words.
So
yeah.
get ready.
But like, so you're going through this just to develop yourself. You don't really look at it.
That's my only goal. Yeah. It's like, I want this skill. And if I have this skill, maybe I'll have some opportunities someday from it. I want to travel. I want to be able to talk to people that I meet. That's really was my only goal. And look what came of it.
One day you're sitting with a book and somebody approaches you that, I mean, again, that's how the opportunities in life work.
Yes. Oh, and Nino will be so mad at me if I don't mention his magazine. He has Adelante Forward magazine. It circulates around Lansing if anyone wants to grab a copy.
Super awesome. Where do they get it at? Just everywhere?
It's published in Lansing. It circulates around. You can, oh gosh, I could put the link.
yeah.
I can
We
give
can
your
do that. We can
guy
do that
the
for
link.
Sure. We can do that for sure. Super awesome. So you'll find it in the links. But yeah, like, so many people say things don't happen for me. But then, and we all, watch TV or do whatever different things, but like, what is it that you're going out there and putting into action and doing? And, yeah, you can watch YouTube videos and you can learn how to do stuff, but then are you actually going and practicing it and doing it and taking that action, or are you learning more, or you're learning something different? And, it's just going out there and putting yourself out there, and all of a sudden an opportunity happens. And it wasn't like you were looking for it.
No, that one just totally fell into my lap. I was going from a yoga class to go pick up my kids' glasses that were broken from the eye doctor, and just had lunch in between. And then I met this person that has impacted my life in such a positive, wonderful way for several years. We've known each other now. So yeah, you just never know where anything's going to lead. That's why as a new real estate agent, I've been networking. That's how I met you. I just put myself out there and said, I want to meet people, because people lead you to places that you have no idea, just meeting someone, where that relationship could go. My mom actually went to high school in the same place that I went to high school. She moved away for 20 years and then came back. And then she suddenly saw all of these people that she knew from 20 years ago. And she's like, wow, I'm so glad that I treated everyone with respect. And, that was always her philosophy, is you never know how people are going to come back around in your life. Maybe you meet them once and then 10 years later, they're your boss now. You just never know. So all of those introductions, all of those people you meet, you have to treat them all as opportunities, because they are.
Humans are our greatest resource. And when I talk about, like, we live in a time of the greatest resources, we can learn how to do anything and online and all that kind of stuff, but relationships will never surpass what we can learn online.
No, that's the human experience. AI cannot replace people in your life.
And I love it in the podcast, when I get introduced to somebody by somebody, I love tracing back and explaining to people like how I meet people, because a lot of times I've heard so many entrepreneurs or so many people in a space, like it's so lonely at the top. And I feel like if that's what you're saying, that you're doing it wrong,
Yes.
like, because for me, like, all the world has opened up since I started my business. I didn't know, it's outside of my family. I didn't know anybody that I'm hanging out with. I didn't know they existed, and so all those relationships. And now it's so cool when you see how people tie together. You look and you're like, oh my God, you look on their Facebook and you're like, oh my God, how do you know that person?
Yeah,
we grew up together. Like,
friends.
it's so crazy. It's so crazy how many guests I've had on this podcast that will reach out to me and be like, I just had Nate, a guy on recently, and Cody Powers reached out to me. He's like, oh my God, I used to work with Nate in a restaurant back in the day. And like, we used to go like all this different stuff.
Well, it's funny. I actually met a guy who does mortgages down in Jackson. I didn't meet him. Okay. We met on Facebook.
Yeah.
So he just said, hey, you're an agent. I'm a mortgage guy. Let's chat. And so great. So he started liking my posts. And then I was talking to my best friend of 20 years from high school, and he's like, hey, how do you know that guy? And I was like, oh, we just, we met on Facebook. He's like, oh, I went to high school and college and that trip to Greece with him.
Oh my God.
And I was like, no way. So then we ended up, I went back to him and said, hey, my best friend. So we had lunch and got to know each other better. But, that's the thing. I was connected to that guy I didn't even know when he first started talking to me. I'm like, wow, we have so much in common. You can find that with just about anyone.
Yes.
6 degrees of separation.
Yes.
You have something in common. There's common ground you can find with every person.
With every person. It's so, that's one of the things I really like about social media, because you can kind of connect it much quicker before.
Yeah, it would have taken hours of conversation for us to ever realize that in real life.
I've been in sales, and I've had clients that I've had these sets of clients, and then I find out, oh my God, you guys are brother and sister-in-law, or you guys are related. I didn't even realize that, because different last names or whatever. And it's just cool to see how that all ties in. But
yes, and you need to have those relationships. I mean, any business owner, even if you think, I'm the only person owning my business. Like for me, I'm an agent, I'm doing it. It's all my commission, my money, I'm making it. But I can't do that alone. I have 50 other people that I need in that transaction to get it to happen and to make it work. And even just with clients, they need vendors, they need some construction, they need someone to clean their house. They need all of these people that now I have these connections already set up, and I can just connect people. And that's valuable for real estate clients, and in addition to any business owner. All of your clients are going to need that.
And so I love that it came back down to this, because when we were talking earlier, I was like, I wanted to ask that question, because you're talking about meeting other real estate agents, and you're talking about your agents, you didn't even have to talk to or really like meet up with. It just kind of this transaction happened because you already had this connection, and how much those relationships have helped you in all your ventures. Yes.
I mean, I have relationships with agents that I've just developed doing my own personal transactions, and I've taken a lot of, they haven't actually given me advice, but I've just watched them and taken the things that they've done and incorporated it into what I do, all the way back when I bought my first house. The agent that sold me my first house, I went around to call listing agents one at a time, just looking for a place, had them show me. Finally, I met Rob Dowding. He's a real estate agent out in Lansing. And I just liked him. We clicked, and I said, all right, show us some more houses. So 15 years later, now I've referred my entire family to him. I've redesigned his kitchen. He's on my mom's Rotary Club. I just saw him last weekend, gave him a hug at this grand opening of the park in Mason. And that's 15 years later. So that relationship that, I was 21, I didn't really think that was ever going to go anywhere. And now here we are 15 years later, still friends. And he said, if you ever need help with anything, let me know, So I just think those relationships are so powerful, and the other agents that I know across the state now are there to help me as well. If, I ever have a client that needs to go to Grand Rapids, you need to go to Traverse City, I have somebody there on call that can help us and help me help you.
It's like having a connection. I've always I guess growing up even as a kid in a small town, like seeing that everybody has a guy or a person, right? And like I've always been fast. I've always wanted to be somebody's guy, like, and so that
everyone
was really,
loves recommendations.
That was how I built my sales career. I was somebody's guy, like they always had a guy, and so I led my companies in referrals, like people would just send me all their friends and family and all that kind of stuff.
You are a great host. You just have all these amazing questions. You just keep probing and probing. I can see why you're great at what you do.
I think it's a natural curiosity. And I thought about this one day. I was talking to my mom, and she would my mom's like this super nosy person. I love you, Mom, but she's like super, she wants to know everybody's like business, right? More like she knows it. She admits it. She's like more like gossipy kind of, thing.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people could relate.
With
their moms.
Relate to my mom. So like,
you need to know something, just ask Mom. She knows about all the things, right?
So I was in elementary school, and I'd come home and I'd tell my mom like half stories, and like be like, oh yeah, this happened, and like, Jimmy's doing this or whatever. And she's like, and then what happened? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, she like said something to me like, if you're going to come home and tell me stories, you need to make sure you get all the information. You're not nosy enough. And so like, I don't know, I guess it was like shaped me. I don't.
That's great. I got to use that on my kids, because they come home from school and I say, how was your day? And they say, good. I say, what did you do today? Oh, I don't remember.
It's different now. I cannot, like, that's my kid too. I don't get it. You know, like, I'm so great at asking questions. My kid is great at deflecting them.
They are amazing. I'm like, how do you not remember a single thing that you did all day? Give me one thing.
And then on days when he wants to talk,
How was recess?
he'll download us for a whole month of all these things that happened. It's like, so when we're asking you what happened, and you're like, nothing, like those things happen?
Oh, yeah. If I say what happened in VR today, I will hear an hour-long thing about this VR thing that got built or whatever. But
that sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Oh, it is really cool. I don't play, but my son, he actually has his birthday tomorrow. He's turning 12.
Super
and he is obsessed. So I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. All of the parents nowadays, we have no idea what this technology is going to do to our kids. So we'll find out.
It's really cool. You never know what it's going to do, but like now there are opportunities, and now, you know, there are those huge opportunities. And even like, I remember like growing up, you know, I'm at 46 today, and like parents saying, oh, you're going to rot your brain and all this different kind of stuff.
I know, right? I played computer games for 8 hours straight, like those city building games. Used to love those.
Yeah.
So when my son does it, I'm like, you know, what I think I learned was how to manage something, how to have a strategy. I learned a lot of actual skills from playing those that I know he is too. I know his knowledge is so much bigger than mine just with the technology. I mean, I think I'm great at technology compared to some people. He says words, basically every sentence has a word that I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't even know that word. Teach me that new vocabulary word. They need an urban dictionary for our children. But, you know, I know he's going to take all of this technology knowledge and he's going to turn it into something at some point. He's got a passion for it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's rotting his brain. We'll see. Maybe he's spending too much time, you know, doing it. We don't know.
We talk about in the box stuff, and I there's one of the stories I shared with you the other day is like the whole journalist and, you know, psychology thing. But like, I was obsessed with sports as a kid, super nerdy. Like, I would like, you know, have my baseball cards out and like read stats, and like if a baseball player got a hit, I could calculate the average and his average going up, right? Like this kind of thing. However, a story I told myself was that I sucked at math. For some reason, I didn't see that as math.
I think a lot of people tell themselves that story.
And so all through school, I struggled with math, and I'd have teachers that like would see me like, you know, I'm sneaking and looking at baseball cards and doing different stuff. If like somebody came along and broke the news to me that this is what I'm doing, and then I got into business and I'm like obsessed with these numbers and like, you know, like figuring out forecasts and doing all this different stuff. And I'm like, oh, I was doing math all this time, you know, and this is actually how I'm applying it.
You made yourself afraid of it.
Afraid of it, a limiting belief on that goes, but like how my, you know, childhood thing that I didn't think was going to take me anywhere. You know, people told me it was a waste of time and all this different kind of stuff, but it actually applied to my life.
You know, that's what's different for everyone. You know, you find your passions, even when you're a kid, they come out in different ways, but the things you're passionate about don't totally change. You know, I was passionate about learning when I was a kid. I went outside of school and spent all of my time reading and learning about other things that I was interested in, and I still do that as an adult. So
well, and what led you to interior design? What was that spark that would
oh wow, that actually came about from a crazy last minute decision. I started out college, or actually at the age of 12. Okay, we'll go back to that. I decided I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a plastic surgeon. Okay, I wanted to help people in other countries. I wanted to travel abroad. And then I worked towards that. I was fifth graduating in my class from high school. I worked my butt off, National Honor Society, volunteering for this, basketball, all of that stuff, making my resume look all great. Got into college. I got on the dean's list at Western. I joined the honors college. I took the hardest classes that I could possibly take and completely overwhelmed myself, you know. And I cried all first semester of college. Chemistry was so hard. This totally sucks. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I just decided this so long ago, and then I was so stubborn that I never reevaluated, you know?
Yeah.
And so I quit. I dropped out of school in January. Like, I went back for 2 weeks after a Christmas break, and I was like, this is not what I want to do. I'm just going to stop. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, you can't quit college, And I'm like, well, maybe I'm going to be a hairstylist, because I worked at a salon for 5 years. My aunt owns Personal Images in Jackson, and I was a receptionist there. So I thought, I like to be creative. I like to talk to people. What can I do, And I explored that for a minute. I started working at the coffee shop, and finally I was like, what I always used to do? I love organizing. I used to draw floor plans all the time just for fun, of my bedroom, redesigning this and that. And I love puzzles. Puzzles are one of my favorite pastimes too. So when you design something, you have your computer software, you get to basically create your own puzzle, when you're designing something in those really
That
cool
makes
software.
sense. Everything's like dumped out. You got to put it together.
Yeah, you just get to create your own. And I'm a creator. I like to create. So I looked into interior design, finally decided that is the path I wanted to take. And I started at MSU summer after freshman year. And then I finished out my 4 years there, and I still graduated on time. But yeah, I did a big pivot.
That's a big pivot. And
really had to look at myself and say, what is it that I like to do? I like to create things. I like to help people. I like to help people visualize what they want out of life, which ties into the blog and real estate and everything. It's still kind of the same me going into it.
I'm so glad I asked that question. That was awesome. And it goes, everything ties in, but it goes into like going back to that intuition where people are like, you can't quit, like you're doing this thing. You'd committed to this thing since you were 12.
Oh yeah. I had it in my mind, concrete. I'm going to do this. And I'm that type of person. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I'm a finisher. I wrote a novel. I didn't even talk about that, but I did that for fun. I wanted to see if I could write a book after I translated the book from Spanish. And, I read a statistic that only 2% of people finish a novel. And I'm like, I'm going to be that. I don't care if it gets published. We'll see how it does, whatever. Maybe it'll be awful, but I'm going to finish it. So back then I was like, I said I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it, which is just my personality. But I do have to be aware when I need to reevaluate, because everyone does at some point. Things pivot, things change, your wants and desires change. You got to stay intuitive with yourself as well.
That's one of my concept of the show is stories are data with soul. And there's so much data that somebody that's listening should learn out of this as they're listening to you. But again, that intuition, that awareness, because I think a lot of times, even if you're in business and you started off this one way and you're just like, we're going to make it this here. Yeah. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And you got to be self-aware, and not saying that you shouldn't be in business, but it might not be this over here.
Yes. I totally agree. We can be very stubborn. I'm a Taurus too. So I'm just naturally stubborn. It really does fit me. I dig my heels in and I'm like, no, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to change my mind because I already told everyone I'm doing this and I don't want them to see me as this wishy-washy person or whatever it is. So I totally agree. Don't be afraid. Just reevaluate, change what you need to change, and stay true to yourself. Don't let other people tell you what you need to do.
So I'm glad we brought up the book, because I was reading the description. You were like, I'm going to send you all my links. So I was like, boom, boom.
Look out. I'm going to send you 6 websites.
But like, I was reading them like, oh, this sounds really good. Tell me about the book.
Oh, thank you. Well, yes. So I was translating and editing Nino's book. It's called Pathfinder and Caminante. And at the time I had read this book 60 times, editing it, read it again, edit it again, next stage. And I thought to myself, if I can do this, and I've put out all of these blog articles for years, I'm a writer, I love writing. But what I've been doing is technical, all the blogging was how-to articles, research-based things, teaching people how to do things. And I just wanted to do something fun and creative. So I thought to myself, I'm going to create a fantasy novel. It's a portal fantasy. And in it, I have a protagonist who is a girl. She's obsessed with plants, maybe a little bit like me. But she's a botanist, and she travels through a portal, we'll call it. The book doesn't call it that, but for readers, or for listeners, a portal. She goes into a fantasy realm. and she gets to go on an incredible adventure, find herself, and solve all of the problems that come up in the book, which you'll have to find out.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I love the theme of like just doing it for fun.
Yeah, maybe I'll make some royalties off of it someday. Maybe I won't, but it was something that was inside of me that needed to get out.
How does it feel after you're done?
Oh, it feels like a great accomplishment. I mean, right now it's 111,000 words, so it was a long process.
How long? How long did it take you to write?
It took me about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yep. I had a group of beta readers go through it at the end when I was doing my editing, and about 20 people, and they enjoyed it, gave me some great feedback. So that was also really encouraging that other people have read it and thought it was good. One of my favorite books ever is the Outlander series. And I had one of my readers say this had vibes just like that. So that was one of the biggest compliments I could have possibly found.
That is phenomenal. That is so awesome.
It's got romance. It's got adventure. It's got sword fighting.
I just love how you are not afraid to chase your passion.
Some people say I wear too many hats or I go in too many different directions, but my brain just never shuts off. I'm always thinking of something else I could create. I just can't stop.
But it all makes sense. And like I said, when you're looking at the interior design, real estate, helping people invest, this whole bringing it all together, building out the whole home.
Yes, that's really where the blog has expanded to. I mean, it started as just gardening. I was learning about plants. I mean, all of the different things that go into that. It's a complicated subject that a lot of people are going to the internet to learn how to do. It's not like there's a lot of classes out there on how to grow your own vegetables, how to be a farmer. That's something that people pass down generationally, and it's not getting passed down anymore. Mm-hmm. So having blogs like that where people can come and find that information and design the home that they want, design the life that they want. That's something that I'm happy if I'm inspiring people to do that, create freedom in their lives and create a beautiful life that they don't need to escape from.
That is the mic drop moment right there. That is a perfect way to end it. This has been such a phenomenal conversation. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you, Jason. I had so much fun being here.
I'm glad it worked out. I had so I used to do a podcast with a lady. She's 74 now. She's in Chicago. We've never met in person, and we were doing this podcast on Zoom. Really, again, you never know how you're going to meet people and that kind of thing. I met her on LinkedIn. We ended up having a good relationship. I had her on my podcast, and then she invited me on hers. And then she did a podcast with this lady named Pat that was her best friend, and they called it Everyday Riches. And so she invited me onto this show, and I play basketball on Tuesday nights. And so I couldn't do it that Tuesday night. And so I was going to do it the next morning. And there's a problem with technology. Long story short, I wasn't able to join them. And so I got on late and I was commenting on their stuff and having a conversation with them through their live comments and stuff like that. And then we scheduled to come on the next Tuesday. So I get a call from Barbara on a Sunday, and she's like, hey, and she's crying. She's like, I'm sorry, we're going to have to cancel the podcast. She was like, her friend Pat got in a car accident and passed away. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, of course you're going to cancel the podcast. She's apologizing to me. I'm like, no,
don't
it's a
feel bad about
podcast.
that. Wow.
Man, wow, that's, life is short, so crazy. So a few days goes by, and then she reaches out and she's like, hey, she was like, I was sitting and thinking about it, and she was like, I think Pat would want me to do the podcast. She was like, would you still come on with me? And I was like, how can I say no to that?
Emotional one.
Emotional. So we get on, we talk about life, and life is short, and go live your dreams. And her whole thing is when her husband passed away, when Barbara's husband passed away, she realized after going through the grief that she didn't know who she was. She was a lady in her 60s that lived life for her husband or lived life for her family. Inside she's got this wild, she likes to wear loud glasses and makeup, and, she's got this great personality, but everybody, her family, her whole life told her to dim herself down. You're not, you're
so
not a lady if you're doing this. So many people
can relate to that, right?
So many people can relate to this.
You're being abnormal. Be more normal.
Be more normal. And so we connected just really, really well. And we ended up she's like, hey, would you just become my co-host? She was like, She started off, she was like, hey, would you just join me until I find a replacement for Pat? And I'm like, sure. And so we did it for like a couple months, and she was like, hey, would you just become Pat? And I was like, okay. So we did it for like 3 years of just creating this content or, doing this podcast. And it was great conversations. We ended up writing a book together. It was a best-selling book on small business and on Amazon. So me and her and 7 other authors wrote this book on building a small business.
I'm going to have to read it now.
I have the first chapter. And so each one of us have a chapter in the book. So it was cool. For like a week and a half, I outsold Simon Sinek's Starting with Why, which is like one of my favorite books at the time. So I'm like, yes, I like hit my thing, it was super cool. But yeah, you never know where that relationship goes. But the long story short is she was supposed to come on Monday, and we'd been planning it for a couple months. She was supposed to come on over the weekend. We were going to do some stuff, and then she was going to do the podcast with me. And she called, and she had stuff happen, and she couldn't make it. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to reschedule Monday. I'm just going to plan at my birthday. I'm going to find somebody awesome. Like who am I? And then we have a conversation. I'm like, boom.
We just met.
Thank you. There we go.
Hit it right off.
Yep.
Instantly, as soon as I met you, I was like, this is a kindred spirit. I can just sense it.
Yeah. So it's good. It's cool how it all plays out. And, it's kind of the theme of your conversation of like, you never know what's going to happen when you put your foot forward.
Yes, it's an amazing journey where you meet people, you get introduced to more people. It could lead you anywhere. So I'm glad it led me to you. And thank you for having me here. I feel honored that you even asked. So thank you.
My absolute pleasure. So looking forward to boot camp. So see you Tuesday.